Hey, Eddie and Zotto, GamerNode.com. Welcome back. Today I'm taking a look at another board game. This time it's Century Eastern Wonders, the sequel to Century Spice Road by designer Emerson Matsuushi and Plan B Games. Now, Century Spice Road was critically acclaimed by me and basically the rest of the board gaming world. But does Century Eastern Wonders live up to that pedigree? And what sort of tricks does this game have up its sleeve? Let's find out. Alright, so here's the board setup for Century Eastern Wonders, and the game is played much like Century Spice Road, except instead of using cards to build an engine in your hand, you are moving your ship, your little boat here, from space to space, and performing your upgrade actions on each of these tiles. Now there is sort of an area presence mechanic in that on your little player board here, as you place out huts, these little trading posts on different islands, you'll be earning points. So as you put out more of these in a single island type, you see these are cinnamon islands, you'll be earning points at the end of the game. 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 3. Now, similarly, if you remove huts in a row, you'll be earning upgrades for your ship and for your actions. So that's one element of the game. But let's get back to where we were. So in the game, there will be no cards, but on your turn, you will move your ship one space. If you want to move more than one space, you'll take goods that you might have here in your cargo hold, and you'll leave a cube on the space that you want to pass over without stopping. Then, when you arrive at a location, you can do one of two things. You can simply take 2 yellow cubes. That's kind of like one of the standard starting cards in Spice Road. Or you can place a hut. Now a hut is free to place if you're the first one at a location. However, if there's already one hut at that location, say the black player here wanted to place one, they would have to pay a cube to the supply for each of the huts that was already there. So there were 2 huts, 2 cubes, 3 huts, 3 cubes. In a 2-player game, you're paying 2 cubes per hut because there's only ever going to be one other person there. Once you have a trading post, one of those little huts, on an island, you're now free to use that island's action, the market action on the island. And in this case, if white had 1 brown cube, and let's say they don't have these, if white had 1 brown cube, they could trade it in for 2 reds and 3 yellows. Now if they had 2 brown cubes, they could do that twice. If they had 3 brown cubes, well, theoretically they could do it 3 times, but you only have 10 cargo spaces to start. You can eventually upgrade to get 3 more. So you're always moving your boat on your turn, and then you're either doing that market action to place the hut and perform the exchange on the island, or you are harvesting, which is taking the 2 yellow cubes, or if you end up over in, say, this location, if I had a different configuration of cubes here, if I had, say, this, now I could take my 3 browns that are listed there on that 14-point tile and my 1 red, put that into the supply, and take this tile. That tile now belongs to me, and a new one comes out. Now, early in the game, they just come straight out like this. However, later on in the game, and very soon after the beginning of the game, shuffled into one of the top few tiles will be this X. So that's going to come out where you are, and then for every subsequent tile that's taken and at a port, if you go there and you get this one, then a new one doesn't come out here, but this moves to where you are, so you can't just sit there and get tile after tile. Because the game is a race. Despite it being about getting the most victory points, the game is triggered when one player has 4 tiles. So it is a race to get there, as well as to accrue victory points. And you're doing that in a number of ways. You're either getting the points off the board by getting a lot of huts out, or you're getting these points tiles into your little stash here, and doing a combination of both. And now let's look at these upgrades that we talked about briefly before. So this is the one where you expand your cargo. Here you get an additional free movement every turn. So instead of moving 1 and then paying a cube like that, you would move 2 for free, and then if you wanted to move a third, you'd drop a cube there. This one is every time, well, first of all, it's 2 points at the end of the game, but also every time you place a hut, you get to do 1 upgrade, which is going up from yellow to red, red to green, or green to brown. This one is every time you take a harvest action, in addition to your 2 yellow cubes, you also get a red cube. Plus, you get 1 point at the end of the game. And these are simply victory points in descending value. So first player to take it will get 6, and then every player after that will get 1 fewer. And that's essentially the game. You take turns, you move, you perform an action, either a market action, which is placing a hut and performing an exchange, or a port action, which is exchanging some of your cargo hold goods for the tile that's there, or doing a harvest action, sort of getting yourself started again if you've exhausted your supply, which is never recommended. Most points at the end of the game wins. Whoa, what are all these cards doing here? Okay, so you've probably heard by now that Century Eastern Wonders can be combined with Century Spice Road for a different, although very similar, sort of game. It's called Century from Sand to Sea. And in this game, players will be using the cards from Century Spice Road to make their movements on the board from Century Eastern Wonders. Now, because you have a greater capacity to sail your ship, there are now some empty spaces in the sea, and it also takes away some of the different options for exchanges on the various islands when you take a market action. Also because you have the cards that you'll also have in your hand that will give you different market actions that you can do. So really the game is played in much the same way. You're still moving your little ship around on the islands. You're still placing huts out where you land by paying cubes. You're still taking market actions on these islands. If you go to that island, you'll still trade in this cube for a bunch of these. And you're still moving to this location to then trade in some of your cubes for this tile and earning points at the end. And you're still earning points by clearing your board. However, I failed to flip this. However, on this board, you don't have the initial space here. You only have 16 huts. The points, the values are still the same, 1, 2, 2, 3. However, at the top, when you clear out a row, in this first row, this first column, you'll just take any card that's showing, and there are only 4 cards showing. In the second column, then you have a choice of either a card, any card that's showing, regardless of whether it's at the end or the beginning, or one of your upgrades from the earlier game. And same thing for each of these. And that's really the change here on the board. Otherwise, the main change is that players will start the game with the same 2 cards in their hand that they started with in Century Spice Road. It's 1 double upgrade, which is from yellow to red to green to brown, 2 steps of that in any combo, or just get your 2 yellow cubes, which is the same as that harvest action. There is no harvest action in Century from Sand to Sea because you have this card. I'm just going to clean this up a little bit, and I exchanged my cubes. So the other major difference here is that there's no movement action. So in order to move, you'll still, on a turn, you're able to play cards. So say I played that, and I got my 2 yellow for a harvest action. And then maybe I played that, and I took those 2 yellow, and I upgraded one of them to a green, because that's 1-2 steps. Now I could have just upgraded both of them to a red. Now, let's say I had some more cards in my hand. Now, if I want to move, I can't just move my ship, but I can take my played cards and flip them. So that, when you flip it, is 1 movement. I could do another one, and that's another movement. And you see I have a lot of capacity to move here. Now, maybe I want to go further. Say I want to go to this tile. I can take the cards in my hand and skip playing them, give up the right to play this card and make it a movement point. I could do it again. I could make this one a movement point. I could do it again, and I could make that a movement point. So I've just given up the right to play all those cards, but I've made it way across the board, and now I can spend my cubes here and take this 12-point tile. Yay, it's mine. This again goes over there. This comes out. Boom. Another action you can do, just like in Century Spice Road, you can take a card into your hand on this conveyor belt. They all move down. If I wanted to skip a card, I could leave one there and then take that one. If you take a card that has a cube on it, you get that cube. And the card may have multiple cubes on it. Say someone really wanted that. They might do that, which would be terrible because those are kind of valuable cubes. Actually, I forgot to mention, each non-yellow cube at the end of the game is worth 1 point in both Century Eastern Wonders and Century from Sand to Sea, as well as Century Spice Road. So you can take a card on your turn, you can move and do an action on a tile on your turn, you can play a card on your turn, or you can simply rest. And that's how you get all your cards back into your hand. And that's essentially the difference. You're using these cards as your movement points, and you're able to take more cards as an action. And that's it. Century from Sand to Sea. Cool combo. So that's Century Eastern Wonders and Century Sand to Sea, utilizing the components of Century Spice Road. And I think that's so cool how those two games work together, how you use the components of Century Spice Road to play a whole, well, maybe not an entirely different, but at least a somewhat different variant of Century Eastern Wonders. And I'm going to go ahead and say that I like the Century from Sand to Sea variant better than the Century Eastern Wonders on its own version. I think using those cards gives players a lot more interesting ways to build their own unique engine in this game. Because Century Spice Road, as you may know if you've been following the board gaming industry, was really, really well received. And as you've seen on our previous review on GamerNode, we really liked it as well. So Century Spice Road left some big shoes to fill, or big footsteps for Century Eastern Wonders to follow in. Now Century Eastern Wonders on its own takes that hand building and sort of engine building hand management game and keeps the race aspect of it, but gives it a spatial feel to taking your actions. It's sort of a spatial action selection game. And there is an element of spreading, I wouldn't say area majority or area influence, it's just area presence with placing your little huts out on the board, your trading posts. Now, what I do feel about this game is that it provides players with a full view of everything that is available to them throughout the game. You can sit down and take a look at the board, and I think this actually may be a helpful practice in Century Eastern Wonders, is to take a minute at the beginning of the game and look around the board, see what tiles are near to each other that synergize. That way you can choose, you can say, oh hey, because of the way the board's laid out, I think the best course of action is to put huts here and here and here and hit those quickly and make the combinations of cubes that I'm going to need efficiently throughout the game. But you might look at the board and say, hey, maybe the best way I don't see anything really that is standing out to me as the best way to attack this board. Maybe I'm just going to put huts all out. Maybe I'm going to go for upgrades. I think maybe I should get this first upgrade, and that'll allow me to get the sort of spatial engine that I like the best. Or maybe getting this upgrade will let me get a few more cubes that I think are going to help me based on the tiles that I'm aiming to get. So this game, I feel like, is more of a strategic game and less of a tactical game than Century Spice Road. So you see everything that's there, you plan, and you attack. In Century Spice Road, cards come out, you react. You build your engine, you have an idea of what you're putting together, and then as things come out, you say, oh, this will fit well into my engine. And you develop your plan throughout the game. You build your engine and then run your engine throughout. And you try to do it faster than everyone else. Now, those are two different styles of play. And in my opinion, I think that this game, Century Eastern Wonders, actually loses a little bit of the appeal of Century Spice Road. I think the cards are what really make this game shine, and that's why I think that Century from Sand to Sea is the better way to play Century Eastern Wonders. It's my favorite way to play Century Eastern Wonders. But, for my money, I would still say that Century Spice Road is the game that I favor more. And the funny thing is, I came into Century Eastern Wonders thinking, oh, I love spatial movement, I love spatial action selection, I love moving around a board. This one is going to be awesome. But for me, looking at the board and everything that's out there, it's almost like a little bit of a sensory overload. I kind of like the limitation, the restriction that the cards that come out give you. And even though my friends usually kick my butt at Century Spice Road, and this one too, for my money, like I said, I really like the restriction that Century Spice Road puts on you. And I know, this is a review of Century Eastern Wonders, and the games should stand alone, but in this case, they really stand together. And I think for the fact that the two work together, and the fact that the games are very inexpensive, this is about a $28, $29 game right off the shelf. So for the price, you get both games. That's kind of the price of another game from another publisher. So there's value here. But if I had to choose, I would go for Century Spice Road. Century Eastern Wonders is solid, though. It's a solid game by itself. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to give this game 2 ratings. But the final rating is going to be a 4 out of 5 commendable, because it does provide you with an interesting experience. It builds upon its predecessor and combines the predecessor, which is something we've never really seen in this way before. It's truly innovative. However, the base game, I'm going to have to rate a 3 out of 5. It's a satisfactory game, but I don't think it really shines the way the other one does, or the way that some other games of this type do. But again, putting it together with the cards really elevates it. So there you have it. 4 out of 5, commendable game. If you have Century Spice Road and you can put it together for Century from Sand to Sea, wonderful, commendable, innovative, awesome. If you're only getting Century Eastern Wonders, I'm going to downgrade that to a 3 out of 5 satisfactory. And that's it. Thanks for watching. My name's Eddie Inzauto. If you like our videos, please do give me a thumbs up and hit that bell icon for notifications. And of course, follow us on our Instagram, which has grown by leaps and bounds, Facebook, and Twitter. GamerNode at all of those places. Again, I'm Eddie Inzauto. Thanks for watching. You have fun out there.